Hi everyone, it is Marie here from Skeins and it is Monday, and as I promised I would be here today to talk to you about the wrap up of Hattitude, which happened, yesterday was the first, so we thought we'd wrap Hattitude up and do it in a nice tidy month and give away the last of those prizes. And I have to say I've been blown away by the number of hats and projects and things that have been posted up here on Speakeasy within Hattitude. It has been awesome, absolutely fantastic. And I have drawn some more prizes for that. And I'm actually going to go and do those right now, I think, yes. And we've been really lucky. We've got 2 loads of prizes. One of them is the Hat for Who, which have been given to us by Lara Nettle. So Lara will be sending you a copy of that pattern. And there are 2 winners for that, Rochelle O'Callaghan and Camille Manning. Congratulations. I will be sending you a note on how to make that work. And I've also got some more press leaf pattern packs to send out. And they are going to Anne Coppell, Alison McFarlane and Janet Beswick. So thank you very, very much. And if you want to know how they won, all they did is they posted up their Hattitude projects, either in part or is it completed. It doesn't really matter, but it's all about the taking part that counts. And we love to see what you're doing and what you're getting up to. And there were hats big and small and everything else in between. So absolutely huge success. If you haven't finished your Hattitude project, don't panic, still post it. We love seeing them. So that don't believe that you can't post anything just because it's finished. So do continue to post those, and we do want to keep seeing them as we go. But I did say we're going to announce a new theme, and I've actually been really good, and I've started to write down a big list of themes and things that we can do throughout the time moving forward. And a lot of them are going to be quite broad-ish through the rest of the year until we get into that summer break time, and we will do what we have done in previous years, the last 2 previous years, and we will be doing a single project, which basically is what Marie's going to knit over the summer holidays, and she wants to knit it with her project. That is undecided at this point, but just to give you an idea, that's what we're going to do sort of moving through to the end of the year. And I have already up here got this, obviously, this next month's theme, and coming up to Can. So plenty of stuff coming up. So this month's theme, holy moly. Oh, holy moly, you say. I did mention it in the last video if you did watch that. Holy moly, I thought was a great, nice board theme because it covers basically knitting or crochet with holes. So generally, I mean, that will be lace. Most people think lace, but not necessarily. Last video I think I had on my Climb Every Mountain jumper, and it's got graduated shape increasing using yarn overs, which has holes. So it's how you actually interpret that theme. It may actually be a design feature, a large keyhole, for example, in a jumper or a project. So it's however you interpret holy moly. Could be a religious theme. Don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But I thought I'd wear this today just to give you some ideas. This is my burlesque shawl. I think I may have talked about this in the past. This is knitted in Outlaws Bohemia worsted and amber trope, which is this colour here. As you can see, I'm very fond of it. Same, this what's in here. And the bottom yarn is actually an Angora merino yarn that we had as a sample that was sent to us eons and eons ago, which I have dyed myself using food colouring. So just to prove to you, and I did a blog on this again years ago, just to prove to you that, I do actually tinker around, and I dyed that using a microwave and making loads of mess at home and driving everyone nuts. This shawl is great. It is a free shawl. It's written by Rhiannon McCulloch, sometimes also known as theatre of yarns, or Miss Vinegar. She's known as a few things, but she, this yarn, she wrote it originally for our burlesque yarn, which was one that came out a few years back, a limited edition run yarn, and that pattern is free, so I will post the link on there as I always do, so you can track it down. So that's the sort of thing that, you know, we're talking about. Let your mind race wild. For me, however, I thought I would go a little bit more adventurous and attempt to complete a garment project, because Knit August Nights is coming up in less than 2 months' time, and in fact in about 7 weeks. And for those who don't know, Knit August Nights is an event that I have been running now for 9 years, and it is here in Napier at the end of August, and for several years now there has been a knit along over on Ravelry with those attending Knit August Nights for garments and items that they're going to either have bought yarn at Knit August Nights and they're knitting up, or projects that they're going to wear while they're attending Knit August Nights. And last year I think I completely failed miserably and didn't get anything done, but this year I am going to attempt to get a cardigan done in time. I do have a backup jumper, which I did, the oatmeal, which I completed, so I have got that in reserve. But I actually thought to complete the holy moly theme, and also to, in light of Knit August Nights coming up next month, I dived into the pattern library of one of the tutors who is attending, which is Georgie Nicholson. And Georgie has now, this will be her fourth year at CAN, and she is a Victoria-based designer, and as we all know, Miss Jane, I am a huge Georgie fan, and I actually jumped into the old back catalogue, because I mean she's done a huge number of designs, and I jumped back into the old back catalogue for one called Lizzie, and I'm just trying to find one here that's got a bigger image. There we go, that's quite a nice image, so that's it there. And this one called Lizzie I've chosen for 2 reasons. And reason one was I wanted a cardigan that had a lace component, and this one is great because it has a lace component which is working through, oops, there we go, through the sort of part of the body there with some little detail on the sleeves. Relatively straightforward. Also too, it's the style of cardigans that she does top down. For someone particularly like me, I'm, you know, not the most svelte woman on the face of the planet, but it's done in such a way that it has got good fit across the shoulders and will actually flare and not necessarily cling to the pieces that I don't want it to cling to. So that was one reason. The other reason I chose it is it's a good transitional piece. I live here in Hawke's Bay and in Napier, and it is, whilst it's pretty chilly now, we do tend to hit spring a wee bit earlier than most, and things can get, you know, be quite warm during the day but end up cooler at night. So I wanted to have something that isn't too heavy, that I can have as a layering piece to wear over an extended period of time in a lighter weight yarn. Now, she has written this in a 5-ply / sport weight yarn, and I mean when she wrote it, which from memory was several years, and judging by the picture of your daughter, definitely 1 or 2 years ago now, and she wrote it using the suggested yarns were Madeline Tosh Pashmina, Tosh Sport, Little Plum Super Twist Sport, Millamere Naturally Soft Merino, Debbie Bliss Baby Cash Merino, and Bendigo Woolen Mills Classic 5-ply. But of course, all of those aren't necessarily super easy to get our hands on here in New Zealand. And I had, and some of you, if you were really fast last week, snapped some of this up. I put up a limited amount of this pannier. And before you get your knickers in a bunch, no, the green was not there because I bought all the green. But I did put up the most beautiful, beautiful leaden pewterish grey, and a lovely stormy blue, and a rich, 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 vibrant scarlet, which, by the way, it was a toss-up between the green or the scarlet for me, and I went the green because I've only just really done a watermelon scarlety cardigan. And then maybe a box or two more going up if we can. I just need to see what's happening with some other orders. So that this Premier is spun in the same cylindrical count as our orb. And so, and the recommended gauge on this is 24 stitches per 3.5 millimetre needles over 10 centimetres. Now, the gauge in the pattern is 24 stitches to 10 centimetres over 3.75 millimetre. Now, why am I going on about all of this, you may ask? And the reason is because I wanted to sort of touch a little bit about with these projects and things that we're doing, particularly once you start heading into a garment project, the big thing that I want to make sure is that if anyone is going to undertake a garment for oneself, and especially when you're someone like me, who, when I undertake a garment project, I mean, I'm knitting 2 garments really, you know, because of the size of me. The last thing you want to do is launch in and find a pattern and get some yarn together if you can't get the recommended yarn, knit a pattern, spend weeks doing it, and you get it on and you hate it. And I spent years doing that, years and years, absolutely years and years. And there was a whole bunch of mistakes that I was doing wrong, and I had an epiphany moment several years ago when Isolde Teague bought out her book Little Red in the City, and I realised, and I think I've mentioned before, I was measuring myself all wrong. And I was measuring myself, when I was taking my bust measurement, I was measuring my bust too far down. I was measuring my bust down here when I should have been measuring my bust up here. And so what was ultimately happening is I was ending up with projects that were often too large, or the shape was all wrong, and I just really ended up feeling quite disappointed. So I had to have a big quantum shift of how I was doing it, because I didn't want to stop knitting garments for myself. So what I thought I would do is just give you an idea of what I do when I come to choosing and knitting a garment for me, and seeing whether or not that works for you. And part of that does include yarn substitution, because I don't know about you guys, but I have stuff in my stash, or in my extended shop stash, as I like to call it here, that I want to be able to knit. And we don't necessarily, or have commissioned necessarily, patterns for a lot of our yarns and things that we have. So some of the things that we do is as I look at the construction of a pattern, and I look at the yarns that we have, and so I thought I'd give you some ideas of the process that I go through to try and basically match out and fit, right, that's the pattern that I want, and that's what I want to do. So in this particular case, often it's chicken and egg. What comes first? Is it the pattern or is it the yarn? So in this entire process, before I came to do, in preparation for this podcast over the weekend, I had actually chosen another pattern to do. You say. I've only chosen this morning. And the pattern that I had chosen to do, and I probably will still do this one, is this one here, which is Kate by Libby Johnson. Now, I am still going to do this. It is the most beautiful, stylish cardigan, really simple, clean lines. And as you know, I'm a massive Libby Johnson fan. And the sizing is fantastic, really, really good sizing. The downside of all of that is it's available in this stunning magazine here called Lane Magazine, which I bought at the Holland Road Yard Company. They're one of the New Zealand stockists. Issue 4, if you don't have it. However, that is the only place you can get it, is in the magazine. It's not available digitally anywhere. So I undennard this morning, and I thought, no, I'm not actually going to do that as part of this podcast and theme, because I know a lot of you will want to be able to knit it too, and the accessibility to the pattern isn't as easy as we would like. So so if you happen to have this, do let me know, and if you're going to knit it, because I will be knitting it at some point. And to that end, I even swatched for it. So I chose that. That's knitted in the Zalana yarn. And again, it's knitted in a 4-ply weight yarn. Interestingly enough, it was a 26 stitch tension to a 3mm needle, which is usually you get a 28 stitch tension on a 3mm, and I know I certainly do, but I guess when Libby was swatching that is quite dependent on with the possum content, with the bloom. So that's part of the reason you check that. But I did actually have some pannier at home, and I swatched that. So that is the swatch in the centre with the little lace patterning at the top. Now, why did I do this, you may ask? Well, for starters, I'm swatching. And I know, and it still stuns me, the number of people out there that don't swatch. If you ever come to my house or even around here at the office, and I'll pull some off, I've got swatches everywhere. I'm forever swatching. If you follow Libby on Instagram or any of the others, swatching all the time. In fact, I like swatching. A lot of people don't, but they don't. I even have been racking out this to play around with some stuff with Lizzie. This is Chatswood. I'll talk about this in a second. I swatch all the time. It's actually, swatching is a great thing to do because it's mindless, and you want it to be mindless because it's something you can do in front of the telly. It doesn't take long, but what it does is this is a cornucopia of information. So please, 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 if you do one thing, if you're going to do a project for yourself, is take that hour to swatch. And this is why the swatching is so important. If you're going to be substituting your yarns and changing things out, is that depending on what a pattern's being written for, the properties of the yarn, how it's spun, some of the things I talked about last time, which was around how things are spun, whether they're more rustic or whether they're very soft, and all of those sorts of elements, does make a difference to your swatch and how something looks within a swatch, and even to how it's dyed in a swatch. So in my particular case, I've got this pannier, which is a very, very soft merino with a bit of cashmere and silk. So it's not too dissimilar in construction to our orb vine. And I wanted to know how it looked through this portion here. And as you can see, it looks fantastic. The stitch definition really, really pops, and I'm thrilled with that. And also too, I needed to make sure I got the sizing right, because as I said, if I'm going to knit something for all of this, if I'm 2 stitches out, which is 2 stitches over 10 centimetres, which may be plus or minus ½ centimetre, by the time you extrapolate that out over, you know, someone like me I'm working, I haven't actually measured. The sizing's been changing a bit lately in a positive direction, but still changing. But if I'm, for example, going to be doing an upper bust measurement in the vicinity of around, I don't know, 112 centimetres, and you're ½ centimetre out, well, ½ centimetre over 112 is around 50 centimetres, which then could mean you're plus or minus your garment is either way too big or way too small. So that's thing one, really, really important to do. And seriously, the number of people that will come to me say, oh, I tried that pattern, I didn't like it, it didn't fit well. And you bet dollars to donuts they didn't swatch it. And sometimes when it comes to swatching, you swatch it in the needles that they recommend, and you're not getting the numbers that you need. And I know for a fact that this Lizzie is 24 stitches over 10 centimetres on a 3.75mm needle. Now, on this little green bloke here, just even based on what I got out of that swatch on a 3mm, I will actually get 24 stitches, I know, on 3.5s. And I'll re-swatch it and do that to get that number, to check it and make sure that that is there. But it does vary. It really does vary. Outlaw, I've pulled this one out. This Outlaw would look amazing in that Lizzie. Absolutely amazing. That would work beautifully because that's running off a 26 stitch tension on 3.5mm, which means that for most people, by the time you throw it over a 3.75, you will be hitting gauge or very close to. So that is another yarn to have a look at. The reason I was doing this, and that's the world's smallest swatch, which isn't ideal and that hasn't been washed, but I did this, and I will just quickly whack that off so we can finish showing. This is chatswood. Why are you doing chatswood, did you say, Marie? Chatswood is a DK, not a sport. You were right. Chatswood is a DK, not a sport. I did chatswood for 2 reasons. Reason 1, I know loads of you have chatswood in your stashes, because I've seen what you've bought. And we do have a second batch of chatswood coming through. Will be slightly different grain to the base, but it is coming. But I know that there is a lot of chatswood in stashes out there. So I thought, right, let's have a look. I did chatswood because the chatswood is that very soft, I've talked about this before, the very, very soft 2-fold twist. But when knitted on a firmer set of needles, like this has been, you actually get this really lovely, oopsie, there we go, smooth fabric, and I've been playing around with the lace, and you actually get to your lace paneling a really nice definition to your lace paneling. Much better definition than what you would if you were knitting this at its normal DK tension. Now, I just quickly whacked this off over a 3.75mm, and I actually got bang on. Well, in this case, it was actually 12 stitches per 5 centimetres, but just to give you an idea. So that's where swatching is important, because when it comes down to substituting stuff in, you don't necessarily know what might work, and you need to get that swatching done. I mean, I've done swatching for other projects in this particular tension and have found that depending on the yarn and the project, that I've had merino soft, which has worked absolutely perfectly, and it's given me a bit lighter drapier fabric. And then other times I've actually used something a little bit heavier, like an all DK instead, and gotten quite a firmish fabric, but beautiful pop for the stitches, and it holds really, really well. So you don't know that until you have done your swatch. So if you happen to think you're going to do something like Lizzie or Kate, God, it sounds like a band of girlfriends, doesn't it? Like Lizzie or Kate, when you do your swatching, what I really strongly suggest is do your plain panel there, and then also do a panel of lace with it as well, because it will give you the two bits of information you need. You're swatching for your sizing, and will also show you how your yarn will perform in the lace panel. So you will get lace that you're happy with. And you know what? If you do a swatch and you either block it or you steam it, I tend to steam my swatches. That's just a personal thing for me. And you don't like it, you've only spent an hour on it. And then you do another one. And then keep these. Don't throw these away. Keep them. And I basically, little tip, I then have my bags that I keep the yarn in my stash. If I've swatched something and I'm not going to use it for the project intended, I then put that swatch in with the rest of the bag with a wee note on it, so I know what's on there, what it looks like. So then when you come to have a look and pull that yarn out of the stash again, you've already done the work. And you know what? If you're ever in between projects, and again, I've done this, I'm in between projects, none of my works in progress are particularly inspiring me, I'm feeling just a bit meh, I will sit down with new yarns that I have either from skeins or things that I've brought home, and I'll just swatch them for the sake of swatching them, for that information, so when I do go to use them, it's done and been there. And I've got a funny thing, I think Libby, and I've often seen on Instagram, she's just had mornings where she's had a quiet couple of hours and she's just sitting there doing up swatches. So, I don't know, how many times have you heard, did you swatch that? Did you swatch it? That's part of the reason. And that's, again, the importance for that yarn substitution. It does make a huge difference. So that is holy moly. And I hope that helps with it, just in terms of substituting and swatching. Some of the other things just to watch out for, actually to look out for if you want to substitute anything, is I will always firstly look at the gauge and the tension in terms of that swatching. The other one is the meterage. And I will mention this with meterage because still, if you're more old school and you still work in the ounce/gram model, and we see this heaps here at Skeins, particularly if you'll often see on a yarn, I'll put this as a limited edition, please purchase enough to complete your project. And if I had $1 for every, well, especially girls actually downstairs, if they had $1 for every email we get in a week saying, do you have one more, I'm short of a project, do you have one more ball of this? Honestly, we could retire. And it's on those meterages. Now, the meterages are approximate when we put them out. They're pretty close, actually, to be fair, almost on the button. When you are replacing yarns and substituting, most modern designers now don't list volumes in balls, they will list volumes in meters. That makes everybody's life so much easier. But those are the most modern of patterns. Loads of us still have patterns at home that we've been using from leaflets for years, that we love, things that we really enjoy, and we want to do them in different yarns. You do need to find out what those meterages are. If you don't have the meterage per ball of whatever that particular yarn came in, jump onto Ravelry. You'll find that even the oldest, most discontinued yarns tend to be there. That's what we use as a tool or a guide for us here in the shop. So do work out what those meterages are and try, and I always give myself plus or minus, depending on the project and the availability of the yarn, 15%. So then that way I know that, you know, I've got enough. So I always go 15% over as at an absolute minimum. Yeah, because you don't want to run out. And there's nothing worse than getting right down to the nitty gritty and you haven't got enough. So meterage is one to look out for. And yeah, and do look, and the other place to look is Ravelry. I mentioned Ravelry, as well as looking for meterages of yarns that have been used. Jump onto a pattern page, and actually a lot of people forget this, but when you actually pick up a pattern page, if you look across the tabs across the top, it will actually show you completed projects, and so many people don't realise that's there. I use it all the time. If I'm going to be jumping into a new designer or into a pattern that I've not had before, I will jump into there to see what are the yarns that they're knitting in and what does it look like, and B, particularly again being of a larger persuasion as I am, how something fits on people and how it looks. What does the finished garment actually look like, how it's holding, what the stretch is, does it look good, doesn't it look good? And it gives me a bit of an idea of whether or not that's a project I want to complete, but also whether or not what other people have done, do I want to make modifications, do I want to change things around? Those tools are actually there. So just give yourself a bit of time and preparation, get all your ducks in a row and before you start, and it makes a huge, huge, huge difference to your overall project. Right. Gosh, that went on forever, didn't it? I hope that helps. I hope people, because I want, as I said, I really want, if you're not confident knitting things for yourself, you need to be. I want you to be confident knitting for yourself. So, holy moly, so as I said, I'm going to be doing Lizzie. But if you're not quite there yet and you are doing lacy patterns, I still want to see those. Lacy baby knits, I want to see wraps, I want to see shawls, I want to see everything. Speaking of baby knits, and I'm just going to show this to you just quickly before I head off, is I picked up a project that I started at Easter time, just purely because we were travelling and I had, it was the yarn that I had in my bag at the time, the 7 needles, and I just started knitting for knitting's sake. Now, again, don't ask me for the pattern because there isn't one, because I literally started knitting for knitting's sake. But it's in Silver Lining Lumiere, and how it transpired is this is the leftover yarn that I had. I finished the Aranami shawl that I did in this, and so I had the leftovers, and so I had the needle from the Aranami and this, and I thought, oh, what am I going to knit now? So anyway, I cast this on because there's a few babies there's always babies in your life. So anyway, I started this little baby cardigan. But I just wanted to show this to you in terms of fabric. That's the Lumiere. Now I'm knitting that on a 3mm needle because that was the needle that was in my bag. But I have to say, if you're knitting the Lumiere, this is fabulous. In a fabric, absolutely beautiful. Definitely worth knitting it on that slightly smaller needle because the fabric is stunning and it really is going to be just amazing. So I'm just doing this. I'm getting down to the grey. I'm just doing some stripes at the bottom. But if you're looking for something for baby knits, this isn't machine washable, but it won't need it. It is so soft and so gorgeous. It's just wonderful, like for beautiful natural baby knits. I'm really actually quite chuffed with it, really quite chuffed with it. So that is Silver Lining Lumiere. And I know a lot of you have got that in stashes, and this is a beautiful thing because this is, the meterage is so amazing. If you've done, there were quite a few Aranamis done in this. See, this is the leftovers from the Aranami. Seriously, you will get a baby garment out of that. So that's that. And last but not least, and I probably won't get these loaded up until Thursday, if I'm being entirely honest, but the 12 plies, oh gosh, doesn't that look good? Doesn't that look really good? Anyway, this is Mackenzie and Mackay. So the DK is there. Many of you have got the DKs. This is the 12 ply version. I am so loving the 12 ply version. It's a 3-fold 12 ply. It looks brilliant. So if you are needing a bulky yarn for a project, we've done these in the 200 gram balls because even if you're doing a kids knit, you generally need 1 to 2 of these, and absolutely fantastic. So these will be loaded up for Thursday. It's sooner if I can manage it, but Thursday. And then this is a little sneak peek. This has just come off balling today. We're doing a whole range of limited edition colours for Knit August Nights next month, and the first of these, a lot of those you'll be able to get access to them this month, and one of them is this guy here. Isn't he just fabulous? The camera probably didn't show you that, but it's a really rich, dark, heathered jadey green, and it's to go with the Ahuriri green. So you've got greenstone, Ahuriri green, and this guy as 3 gradients of a really deep green. Beautiful. And there's also a brighter one to go at the other end, really bright sort of jadey colour. So if you're looking, just gorgeous. So they will be coming out hopefully in the next week or 2 as well. So I will head off. I will give those winners a yell, which are again Rochelle O'Callaghan and Camille Manning, who've won the Hat for Who, and Anne Koppel, Alison McFarlane, and Janet Beswick, who won the press sleeve packs. Congratulations! And I will come up with some prizes too for Holy Moly. I'll have a look at some different patterns out there, and we can see if we can get some prize packs together for that, because that will be fun. And if you want to contribute, give me a yell. Particularly if you've got a design you want to contribute, love to hear from you. But in the meantime, happy stitching. I will see you again probably this time next week, and have fun. Keep posting up your projects, even if it's not in the theme, doesn't matter. Love seeing them. But until then, enjoy your week. Hopefully you're not watching too much football on telly, and I'll talk to you again then soon. Bye.